So good morning.
Good morning.
I know we're sort of convening with the Finance Committee. It's on in the corner. We're watching. It's just a formality that we need to do before we adopt the budget. But that is the intention for today. We're going to try to make Jason and Tony available, but given the meeting's happening, but they'll be available throughout the day. As far as business, the budget will be run today in both chambers. Not exactly sure what time we'll get that done, but there is some other business that we have in the House.
Yeah.
Well, don't stop talking about the budget.
I figured I asked direct questions. Look, we're really proud of the document that came out. It's coming out on time, balanced, and makes investments in our municipalities through education, workforce development. There is the extension of what we know as the CRDA here in Hartford. It's now the Municipal Redevelopment Authority, available to other municipalities. I think it's been a shining success.
It has.
In the city of Hartford, so allowing other municipalities to get involved in that is something we're very excited about. But, you know, the pensions coming out, the pension contributions from the municipalities. We heard from the towns, we heard from the members. We were responsive and we removed that. But we held our ground with the pension and Social Security exemptions for our seniors moving forward. We really believe that was a promise we made to the voters. Our members went out and talked about it on the campaign trail. So while there was some pressure, because it is dollars that will be missing from the budget, to reconsider that, we never really wavered on that, and we ensured it was going to be in the final product.
And we also avoided the temptation that other legislatures have done in the past, which is we are going to allow the rainy day fund to be $2 billion. I mean, you can't talk enough about that. It's hard when members see the ability, maybe in their mind, to spend more on programming they'd like to do or back to their towns. And we held the line very firm on that. And so not only is it a budget that puts us up for a good biennium run, but for future years as well. And we'll get attacked on the floor, and that's fine. But when you propose nothing, nothing. I mean, come on. It's hard to, in this building, it's hard to do anything. We all know that. And everyone's prepared to take shots. But how can you negotiate with somebody, not even a piece of paper, not even a summary of ideas? Bob Stefanowski wrote an op-ed I read on Sunday about how he would balance the budget, okay? I wanted to respond to him. There wasn't a Republican budget, literally, anywhere. So how do you negotiate with that? So you can jab at us, you can poke at us, and I will just go back and say, you didn't even propose a budget. So if you say all these cuts are so easy, why didn't you list one?
Here and now, with no public hearings, no vetting of documents, I'm sure today we will face an onslaught of amendments that solve all the budget problems.
But also, some of the stuff, though, in your budget, it also did not see a public hearing. They did not see any vetting in public, like the car sales, the change the new car fee.
No, if you really go back, and I know it was
Say 2 years.
Let's go to this year. We were talking about getting rid of the sales tax exemption for your trade-in. Much different. That had a public hearing. The dealers cried.
But that's not what this is. That's not tripling a fee.
We're not tripling. Max, if you take the sales tax on the trade-in and back down to where we are now, it's a huge victory. So for the car dealers to now play victims, all of a sudden this is happening. What was on the table was the sales tax for the trade-ins. And they ran a very dishonest campaign talking about a double sales tax, which wasn't at all true. They were effective in getting it removed. Uptick in the trade-in allowance fee is all they got. They're very lucky. They should be very happy with what they have here.
So you think it's fair to characterize this budget as being open and public, and it's been
Absolutely.
out there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk about some of the cuts. You just mentioned cuts. All right, so we got $1.5 billion in the first year. Can you run through some of that? I know a lot of it's getting mushed together, but
We would really need Tony here for that, and she's still going through the document this morning. As you know, the document came out 4:30 yesterday, and with Jason in the finance committee.
What do you mean by cut? I'm like, when you say 1.5 billion, you mean that was the deficit basically?
Yeah.
But it's filled mostly by three things. The hospital tax, which by the way, the hospitals want us to do. There's an agreement. We have a negotiated settlement. So when you vote no today, you're voting against your hospital. The teacher pension reamortization. For the first time, Jody Rell tried to deal with this back in 2000, when they did the first POBs.
2009.
2009. For the first time in 10 years, we can say to our business community, there's not going to be a $4 billion problem in 4 years. That's the other big piece of it. And then it was growth. Those three things are the linchpin of how you get to 1.5 billion. There are not massive cuts really to any social service programs or municipalities in
There's the
this.
state employee health care savings over 2 years.
And there's that too.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yep.
Can we talk about the debt-free community college for a second? It's my understanding that that would be funded through some online lottery draw revenue, which may or may not come to fruition. So if that doesn't come through, I mean, that's basically insolvent, right?
I think it will come through right now. If memory serves me, it's booked for year 2. And we should be able to move forward with that. The discussions about sports gambling and everything else, as you know, are ongoing. But we feel very comfortable with the online, the iLottery per se, for year 2.
And there's also Pell Grants that as more kids enroll in community college that we get. That's why if you saw the fiscal note, believe it or not, it was actually a positive
Yes.
revenue on the revenue side to do it, so that you have that aspect as well. And it's in year 2, so you could revisit
The
it.
so-called mansion tax on 2.5+ million home sales. Did anyone ever consider the fact that the people who sell those homes and their office help, they're just middle-class people, and if this decreases those sales, it's going to affect them?
It is targeted at the individuals that would sell, and it is paid by the seller.
Yeah.
And it would be forgiven if they stay in the state of Connecticut. The only time they're gonna pay it is if they sell and leave
And
the state
move,
of Connecticut.
right.
If you stay in the state of Connecticut, it's fine. It's gonna be, you're gonna get all that money back.
And
Why would
we
somebody
define
sell a
middle
house and
class
stay?
differently. We define middle class differently. But 2.5, I don't know if I could get that stretchy with the
No, no,
definition of
I'm
it.
not saying that the seller is middle class. I'm saying the people who sell the homes and who work for the real estate agents are middle class.
But this doesn't impact them at all.
Yeah, it's the list
We have a
price, the list
conveyance
price.
now, right.
But this hikes it up, doesn't it?
Hikes what up?
There is a
It's a
conveyance
high-
tax on a millionaire tax. It's it's different. It's a different tax that a conveyance tax will take place in those homes that are valued more than 2.5.
And why would
It
someone
is
sell
pay-
a home and not leave this?
Because they would downsize, like a lot of families do. You raise your kids, they go to
Buy
college.
another you're trying to encourage them to buy another house.
In Connecticut, yeah, absolutely. I actually think it's one of the more clever ideas in the budget.
Could you speak to the pass-through entity tax? Because I'm sure people who pay that tax and who'll be paying more will be looking at it as an income tax increase.
Given the tax breaks that they received from the federal government, which totaled for Connecticut taxpayers, I sat in Jason's briefing, so I'm hoping to get this right, about $300 million in additional money came back into those individuals in the state of Connecticut. Under our plan, we would only be recapturing just under 50 million of it. So there's still 250 million to the good. So if it's considered a new tax, then okay, fair enough, but you're just receiving less of a tax break than you were receiving before from the federal government.
And I heard somewhere that it's pretty much a wash, that what they were getting before was still a better deal than now. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
No
yeah,
question.
yeah, there's still 250 million to the good.
The 300, just so I understand, the 300 was in state and federal, or explain the 300?
So the $300 million in additional dollars that came to those individuals that have the pass-through entities was provided by the Trump tax breaks. Here in the state of Connecticut, we're reclaiming only 50 million of that through our state income tax.
And we did it to get around, it was a SALT workaround, right? And so that's why it was established.
So they're
so.
still getting a tax break, just not as big.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
Someone said, I read an article where someone said, you know, what happens next year or the year after? And you can say that with any issue. I hate when people say that. Well, this is the slippery slope. It's a legislature. Anything can change next year, 2 years, 10
right
years from
back
now.
at it.
Legislators do.
Can you do an incidence analysis on that kind of thing?
Jason has it.
Okay,
He actually
but the
has.
Republicans are saying it's gonna reach down to people making as little as 75,000, as opposed to the real high
Yeah,
earners.
but it is a percentage wise, so it will be, Jason actually has a great little graph he can show you that he
Yeah.
did. It goes down to, I guess there are actually some businesses that claim zero. I guess they're the ones that are affected the most. They are gonna have to pay like $250 or something.
I had a guy call me in my district, actually, and he said that he would acknowledge that he made about $15,000 last year as a result of how we did this workaround and the pass-through entity tax. And this reduction will be about an $800 less, so he'll be making $14,200. And I get it, you can argue about that, but that's our point, is that he's doing very well, and he acknowledged that, and he didn't want me to vote for it, but he acknowledged that he was doing up 14.2.
The mills tax increase is just 1% more?
1%.
But there used to be some discussion about channeling that to the cities and towns, that went
Well,
away?
well, so in part, what we're able to do, we always talked about it going to the towns
Right.
specifically to offset the effects of the teacher retirement for the municipalities to put into that. They fought really hard against it, again, said it was a slippery slope. So we did the same plan, except it's staying with us, and we're going to continue to pay the teacher's pension. It very easily could have been reversed, but they had no appetite for it.
We earmark that for teachers' pensions or no?
It won't be earmarked. Again, I feel very strongly about earmarks, the flexibility that we need in the legislature. And once you say it is absolutely going to happen and then something changes, we're criticized for lying to the voters. So we
You
will
were
not
very
earmark
strong
it.
about the opioid tax, sitting in that chair a few days ago. What has happened since?
Well, the whole plan that Representative Scanlon will be moving forward has changed dramatically. And there's a couple key portions of it that don't cost all that much, but reinsuring the Husky folks that were removed from the system a few years ago, putting them back on the rolls, we found other ways to pay for it, so it wasn't necessary anymore.
And I don't mind saying when I can learn better too, I was equally, there. The palliative care part, got some emails and calls over the weekend, and I had not necessarily considered all of that and understood that point too. So,
Some will be passed through.
yes, to people who are taking end-of-life stuff, and I figured it was hard.
On the topic of education, with as much as this budget does for funding, why eliminate the STEM income tax credit for those students?
The STEM income tax, the break for new graduates, I don't,
Right.
did we? We did,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Tough choices.
It's never been.
It's delayed, yeah.
Can you talk
Tough
about
choice, yeah.
the success on the progressive side? I mean, obviously, minimum wage, FMLA has been a big success, but you have critics who will say, is this the time to do that when Connecticut businesses are already strapped, Are you still supportive? I mean, obviously you are, but
yeah.
don't you think that could have damaged all of this all at once?
I'll pick one, and the majority leader can go at the other one, because we sit next to each other enough. I know where the better points are. But FMLA, it's going to be paid for by the workers. And every other state has done it, has not seen the fraud, has not seen the sky falling. I spoke with New York business people that think it's the best program they can offer, and especially with the municipality, with the individual workers paying for it. It's a great program. They're allowed to stay home when needed to care for sick family members and also take care of folks that are not doing well. I don't see it as a big issue. Minimum wage, also, that money's coming back to our economy. The more money that's available for the lower wage earners in the state of Connecticut, it is immediately spent. It is spent on groceries, on TVs, on furniture, and allowing someone to live with dignity in the state of Connecticut is what we want. I can't see, if everybody's on a level playing field, how it's going to drastically affect business so
But
much.
how do you compute that there's gonna be more money? If I'm an employer and I
Yeah.
only have so much.
Okay, give me a
I only-
business,
I
for
only
instance,
have- I
Mark.
only have so
So you're a
much
pizza
for
shop.
payroll. Yeah, I
You're
only
you're a
have so
pizza
much for
shop.
payroll.
Okay, so if everybody in your neighborhood has more money, you're going to sell more pizzas. So you can pay more.
But if every business
Yeah,
has so much for payroll.
sure.
They're not.
Well, give me the business you're talking about. Give me a
Right.
business.
I don't care what the business is.
No, I mean,
I've got-
it's an example because.
I've got
if-
$100,000 for payroll in my small business.
Okay.
$100,000.
How do you expand that, money?
By the numbers of employees that I have.
No.
If I can't afford to give them all raises.
But if you sell more-
I get rid of some of them.
But Mark,
So
if
the
you
same
sell
amount of money
more,
goes out.
you'll have more. If more people have disposable
Like I
income,
said,
which,
the chicken and the egg.
well, I think it's worked in other states fairly well.
Well, I think that the thing that I would also counter is that all the studies on minimum wage don't demonstrate a lot of loss of jobs. And other states that have done it, they've not seen that. So we are using examples from other states to look at that. Also, it really helps with retention. One of the biggest costs for businesses is people can leave because they're going to get paid more somewhere else, right? You are now having people who might be able to say, I can stay here because I see a path to do that. And that stability of maybe a year or two, which might be an entry-level job, versus 4 months and churning somebody out, all the training does save them money as well.
You were very critical of the CBIA last week.
Yeah.
Come to the table late. And now, you know, they feel that in a way that how could you expect them to be happy with all of these things that are coming at once? What do you think to that?
There's a lot of really good things in the budget too. What about the workforce development, the municipal redevelopment authority, the supporting of local education? One of the biggest tax issues here in the state of Connecticut is property tax. All right, so we'll cut the municipalities. What are they gonna do? They're gonna raise property tax. So I think what the majority leader was saying, and again, not speaking for him, is you can be critical on certain aspects, but you should be supportive of the other aspects. There's a lot of really good things in this budget. The hospital deal that the governor was able to broker brings that stability to the state. The hospitals are some of our largest employers. If you talk about the spin-off businesses from the hospital, whether it's laundromats, food, I mean, they do a lot of things for the state of Connecticut, and having that be an issue that's settled, they should have commented on that. So, again, not speaking for them, but let's look at it in totality. You can say the things you don't dislike, but talk about the things you like.
Yeah, and I met with some, you know, I talked to some of their representatives, and I didn't apologize. I didn't say anything I felt bad about. But what I would say is, to the speaker's point, is that it kind of goes back to what I was saying about having no budget proposal from the Republicans. If we're trying to fix the state and we're trying to move in a good direction, it is not helpful to simply always just say what you're against. Sometimes it's got to be what you're for. Or you got to get in the room, roll up your sleeves, and negotiate things. And this past week, I can think of 3 bills that we thought were going to take 12 hours of debate, right? And instead what happened was we got them worked out between Republicans and Democrats, amended to a point where they could move more quickly, and in some cases get bipartisan support. So if you just say no to everything, you're wasting a lot of people's time and money and resources. Have ideas on what you think could change things or move the budget forward. Then you can argue about what you disagreed on. But that's, I think, my big thing is I hate when people have no ideas. They just say no to everything. That's not leadership.
But was there a sticking point in this budget for you? I'm just curious. I mean, was there ever a time when the governor proposed something you didn't agree with?
Thousands of them. Thousands of them. But that's how negotiations go. It's you have it with the Senate. You have it with your individual members. But what you try to do to be effective leaders is you try to find that balance, the balance between the 3 folks that will have to either bring votes or a signature to the table, and the members. I will tell you there's 5, 6, 7, 8 things in this budget that I'm strongly opposed to. But I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about the overall document as a whole. And I gave in areas, the majority leader gave in areas, but it's a balance. And I think that's true for the governor's office, the Senate, and all of our members too.
Once
Is
the
the
draft went out,
third-party tax collection in there, and why is that? What is the benefit of that? The retailers say
It's
that
out.
It's
I
out.
don't believe it's in there now.
It's out, completely out.
Out.
Okay.
What are
Thank
the,
you.
what are the items that when the draft went out over the weekend, what are the items that you heard from your own members raising objections? or at least serious
The
feedback?
same day sales tax was one. The pass-through entity, they wanted to understand it
Yep.
more because they were getting questions. When we put the little graph out there to folks to where they saw what it looked like in the 300 millions and only recapturing 50 million, they felt more comfortable. This morning, it's the car dealers I know are reaching out to folks. And again, yeah, it's a balance. I get it. For them, it's a new fee, but it's drastically improved over all the other options that were on the table as it affected them. So we actually thought we were doing something that was helpful. But you see how that goes today. But those were a few.
what
I don't know
about
that I
this-
heard anything else. Have you?
No, I mean, I'm pretty active on my phone. I expected to be last night, and I got not as many calls as I normally get, so.
Well, what do you say to people out there who just see another round of tax increases coming at them? Whether it's, you know, if I go to a restaurant and get a soda from a soda fountain, or a plastic bag, or pass-through entity tax, I mean, there's gonna be, you know, the reaction's gonna be out there.
Yeah,
What do you say to those people?
The pass-through entity tax was really about progressivity to us. The restaurant tax was about paying in part for the teacher's pension. We would have directly done it through the municipalities, but they really were opposed to that. So we found that as the balance. The plastic bags is more about adjusting people's behavior.
Yeah, it's an
We would
environmental
like,
policy.
it's an environmental policy. We actually expect it to have diminishing returns because more and more people are going to be doing the right things and either using compostable bags or bringing their own bags in. So those three in particular, and I understand what you're saying, Paul, it's not just those three, but they're bigger policy issues than just, quote, money grabs.
And what I would say to, sorry, Max, one thing, what I would say to these people too is I would say, okay, so what would you have done differently? Or what legislator that you support, what was their proposal to do differently? And they would say, well, you could make cuts. And I'd say, okay, do you have a list of those cuts? Property, do you want to cut municipal aid to raise property tax? Do you want to cut social services? But seriously, okay, give us a counter proposal. That's where I think people are going to, when people find out, I think, in the public, that there was no counter proposal, I think they'll be far angrier at that than people who actually sat down and got a budget done.
Well, they're not really responsible for putting out a counter, but they're not under any constitutional obligation or legal obligation or even a
No,
political
they're not.
obligation.
Well, I
to
don't know
put
about
a
that,
budget,
but-
To budget. You guys are in charge.
I think there's
The
a
question is,
moral
why can't
obligation.
We're all in
you guys
charge.
cut? Why can't?
I
you know,
think
why
there
do
is
you
a
guys
moral
vote with
obligation.
taxes
Invite them
instead
into
of
the
cuts?
room.
They were repeatedly.
They were invited?
Of
Repeated?
course, the governor said since January, open door policy, come in, I want to hear your ideas, let's talk about it. Every year they've produced the document.
Yeah,
They
it's
didn't,
true.
they did
That's
not,
true.
why did they not take a pass?
Maybe the public, when they voted in a gubernatorial race that a lot of people thought a Democrat would have a hard time winning, said, you're going to repeal the income tax and you're going to cut $1 billion. Well, that's not ever going to happen. It's not true and it's laughable. So I'm not voting for you because it's unrealistic and it's not leadership.
On the 1%, following up a little bit on Paul,
Yeah.
on the beverage tax, that's hitting them all. This
Prepared
distillers,
food,
beer, all prepared
yeah.
food. Do you think that's gonna change any behaviors, or is that just a way to raise money?
No, really, the prepared food tax was to offset what we saw in the rising teachers'
Right, so it's not gonna
pension.
change, so in other words, it's not gonna change any behaviors?
No.
People aren't gonna have fewer sugary drinks as a result of that, less beer because of
Well,
that?
it's not just beer and sugar, it's buying a chicken
It's everything.
sandwich.
It's
Yeah,
everything.
it's everything.
They're gonna have less
No.
fast food, and those people might be on Medicaid.
It's
all
gonna
that
put,
stuff.
it's gonna put us on an equal playing field with all the states around us that currently do it, and it helps us pay for something that neither Representative Ritter or I have any responsibility for, but many other leaders in this chamber, in the chamber upstairs in the governor's office, kicked the can down the road, and we're finally trying to deal with.
And the thought was just, Max, on that many states, as you know, have the local levy, whether it's county or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And so we said we could do that and give it to the towns, and some towns do really well. The cities, Glastonbury, West Hartford would do great, but then the other towns, some of the small towns don't do well, and they got pushed out, and that was kind of negotiation,
Yeah.
so,
And,
yeah.
and the 10% increase in the excise tax on alcoholic beverages is at the retail level. Is that right?
I'm looking
Not at the wholesale level? I mean, does that?
Excise
Is it at the retail level?
Or at the
When you go to the
wholesale.
package store and buy something,
Will you be spending more for alcohol? I believe yes.
I think it's at the wholesale level.
it's at the
Yes.
wholesale level,
Yes.
so it'll affect bars
Is
and.
beer exempt?
Restaurants as well.
Yeah, and beer is exempt.
And beer is exempt.
So it's not the
Yes.
retail.
Yeah.
It's spirits.
So Sam Summer is exempt from the,
And
Say it again, Maureen?
It's like a bottle of wine is 7 cents.
Yeah.
7 cents more.
7 cents more.
yes,
Oh, so it is wine and spirits.
yes, not beer.
So are we done with
How about a
year
bottle
after
of
year
bourbon?
of deficit? Bourbon is 50 to 54 cents.
I would love to say yes, Sue.
Are we what?
Are we done with year after year of deficits?
Yeah, I would love to say yes, and if we do the economic development the right way and the workforce development, I think we'll continue on our current path.
Yeah.
But we always have to watch out for issues out of our control. If we really hit a recession or a depression, there's certain things we can't do here in the state of Connecticut. But knowing that we've done the right thing and left the $2 billion in the rainy day fund will be helpful.
And that's the key. We are hedging our bets against it. And look, that's probably the hardest job that Joe has is people can say, well, you can't, past years you could say, we literally cannot do that, right? This year you could have done some stuff. And that's where the speaker had a decision to make. He got to draw on the line and done what maybe other people have done in the past and said, well, someone will figure it out in 3 years. And that $2 billion, which by the way, in the biennium, the projection, my understanding is it might be as high as 2.6 after another year and a half. That's a big deal.
So is that your major selling point to business, that with getting rid of the teacher pension cliff
Yeah.
and this, you're selling what, stability?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would
And the
s-
hospitals. I mean, we had the Attorney General in here, right? He misses us, by the way. And he comes in here and
So he says.
I don't believe it.
and he says, look, I don't know what happens, but you have exposure here of north of $1 billion potentially. It was scary stuff. So those three things, I think, are really a big linchpin of this
That's
budget.
because it's, you've renegotiated.
Big
Well,
linchpin of the budget.
So,
Is that the right term?
They, yeah, so it's an all-encompassing settlement that the governor and his staff have put together, which was a lot of hard work. But it alleviates claims going back to 2012 that could have resulted in a bill of $2 to $6 billion. And it puts the stability in the phase out over the next X amount of years. I don't want to comment on that. I know it's still pending some approval.
Right.
But it brings that stability for the hospitals.
So when's the toll session?
Toll session, I will tell you, I don't know if you've all seen Governor Lamont mad or not before, but he was very upset Saturday with the fact that we have not finished the work as it comes to transportation. And he wasn't just saying tolls. He was saying whatever the answer is, it has to happen. It affects our economic development here in our state. It affects safety here in the state. And I'm not letting you off the hook. So I would imagine, and this, I think he almost said it, but he didn't come out and say it. He's gonna demand that we get back in here and finish our jobs and come up with a solution. He was very, very angry.
Next week?
I don't know. You should ask him. He was, again, I've known Ned a long time, going back to 2006. I've never seen him as angry as he was on Saturday about that. Very happy about many other things. But when the subject turned to that, the meeting became incredibly uncomfortable.
Did he comment on the Senate not being in on Saturday?
No, he didn't. He just, it really was, this is where we're at. And the Senate leadership was around.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
You guys,
the,
is that
the
you guys
Senate.
meet Saturday, or did you?
No,
stop
we
at five?
didn't meet with, it was a lot by emails and doing that,
Well,
but
how did-
individual
how did he
senators.
convey his anger? Did you
No, it
talk-
was directly with me. I
phone
stopped,
call?
no, I went over there. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, I stopped over there to talk about a couple other issues.
With the
And then,
resident?
no, he was here.
He was here on
Yeah, he was
Is-
here Saturday morning.
Is the frustration with you personally and you personally, or is it with the institutions and the way they operate?
I think his exact terms were, you all need to do your jobs. You were elected to solve problems facing the state, and this is a problem
What'd you
facing
say
the
to
state.
That sounds like him.
I said, yes, Governor.
All right, we better wrap it up and do our job.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I see what you did there, Larry. I see what you did there, Larry.
At 11:55 or whatever Wednesday night, you will call yourselves back?
I don't think we'll need to,
Well, yeah.
and it's not something we're gonna do for transportation. I would talk to the governor.
So he's gonna call.
I don't, he was very upset.
But we reserve the right, if we need to do that.
Right.
Yes, we do.
All right, thanks for your
Be
time.
careful, don't trip on this,
Careful.
Representative Ritter to your left.
You're giddy right now. There's something cute about it, and there's something a little, like almost annoying about it.